Sometimes the burden that you carry is actually going to be the breakthrough, the purpose, and the impact that you're going to make in life. A good example of this is Franklin Roosevelt. So, prior to his presidency, Franklin Roosevelt suffered from polio. And this disability ended up affecting the rest of his life, where it made it hard to walk and function as a human. He sought a lot of treatments, but none really fully worked. So when he got back, he took a couple year hiatus to be able to treat this polio and recover. And he wanted to show face. And the way he wanted to do that was to act like nothing happened. Try to show that, like, hey, I could walk, I could talk, I could move around, do everything, resume everything as normal. His first political speech that he did back on the campaign trail, he's walking across a marble floor. He had metal braces on, and underneath his feet, the metal from the braces slipped and he fell down in front of thousands of people. And this is before his first speech. He ended up giving the speech, and he went on in other scenarios where he kept on campaigning, and he'd have humiliating ways to have to go up into certain rooms to make meetings. Like they'd have to crane him up in a wheelchair type of thing, or they'd have to have like four people walk him, and it would cause this big scene because back then there wasn't ADA accessibility in buildings. And this made a profound impact on him. And one of the things he took with this sensitivity towards the disabled was he heard of a Warm Springs, Georgia, he heard of an area called Warm Springs, Georgia, that was a shut down rehabilitation center. And I guess the water there came from a certain spring that had certain qualities about it. Well, he took his family's inheritance and put 2/3 of it on rehabbing this spot. And everybody thought he was crazy because this was completely a sidetrack from what his political ambitions were. But because he had a sensitivity and experience of it's hard to function in this day and age as somebody who's disabled, I have to do something about this. And so he decided to open a rehab clinic for not just people of the disabled, but also their families as well. And he put all of his heart and soul into making this thing function because he was so sensitive to the injustices that the disabled people had to live in that time in America. Well, through that, he cut his teeth on leadership. How do you lead these people, even though they have nothing to offer me back? He ended up learning how to get federal funding, and it was a for-profit initially, but he wanted to make it more accessible because for the most part, especially in that time, people that were disabled were also poor because they couldn't work in the same sense. And so he wanted to be able to make sure that those people that were poor and disabled had the ability to actually enjoy life and at least have a reprieve from their suffering. So he got federal funding and made it into a nonprofit. And he learned how that worked. And so the leadership of how do I serve my fellow man without expecting anything back and modeling that was essentially, I'm not going to say like that he went to the presidency because of that Warm Springs project. However, that is where he got his leadership concepts from of like, how do we serve the people who have no way of paying us back, but they still are part of our society? And so I bring that up because FDR was known as one of the great reformists to be able to help the forgotten man. He helped the people that were in a depression, in bad scenarios. But the reason why he was so sensitive to that is because he allowed the things that were quote unquote his burden, his polio disabilities, he allowed those to shape the directive of like, what injustice do I need to resolve in this lifetime? And that was where he put his dedication and he made a profound impact.